YouTube Ozico the Godows is back with my linebacker rankings and some scouting reports here. The last of the position rankings is a playlist full of all of them. Adjusting some of my rankings and adding more. We'll have a spreadsheet like always, maybe a little more in depth this year for you guys. I'll post it here on YouTube and on Twitter a little closer to the draft. But a lot of important content to get to before the draft and live during day one. Winners, losers, grades throughout the draft as well. Very important. Follow us on Twitter. So my number one linebacker is going to be Edan Cooper. My number one and number two is actually close, and maybe it's not your typical number two for everyone else, I guess. But I like Edan Cooper. I like his upside. You know, he does have some flaws to him, but he's extremely explosive athlete. It shows up the way he, how rangy he is, how he gets downhill. It's just his good moments are like his highs are really high. His low, I wouldn't say really low, but he's super flashy. I just wish it'd be a little bit more consistent, but it's a guy you definitely want to work with. Pretty solid in coverage, pretty solid versus the run, solid in the backfield, getting after the quarterback as a blitzer. You can put him off the edge. So he's a weapon at the linebacker position. He's actually lined up in the slot at times as well and covered from there. So something we forgot to list there, he's extremely lengthy, elite length for the linebacker position. So I think having the athleticism he has and the length he has, I think it enables him to do that. But I look for these linebackers in today's NFL. I mean, today's NFL linebackers are different than the even 5-10 years ago. They're pretty flashy today. Like the flashy ones stand out. They're super athletic. They're rangy. They make some crazy impact plays. So I think that part of that puts Cooper at the top here. I think I mentioned he's pretty tough as a blitzer, can rush off the edge actually as well. My worry is like pretty comparable to a guy like who could revive his career going on a second contract with a new team, but a guy like Kenneth Murray, who came out of Oklahoma a few years back. He just ended his rookie contract, but off-ball linebacker, but where he really stood out was getting in the backfield, getting pressure, but a lot of times they kind of schemed it up, put him off the edge. Is he going to be able to do that in the NFL? I think here and there. So I think he needs a unique scheme that's going to keep him rolling, keep him getting after the quarterback. But definitely needs to be better with his reads. He's not super instinctive, kind of takes him like he just flies to a certain point, and if it's wrong, there's a couple of those linebackers in this draft. If it's wrong, then he takes himself out of the play. Sometimes he's kind of like, where'd the ball go, put himself in the wrong spot because he kind of relies on his athleticism, his explosiveness, and just high motors. So that's why there's really no linebacker, round one linebacker in this class. But because there's a lot to like and because there's a lot to work with and because of the weapon he is, and again, at the end of the day, maybe he's a little safer than some of those style linebackers because he's, again, solid against the run, solid against the pass, can get in the backfield. So that's a good way of looking at it. I love Cedric Gray. He's closer to being number one than he is number two. I think you kind of know what you're going to get with them right now, which is a good linebacker, where Cooper has a lot more upside. So I guess that'll be the difference. I think Gray's a little more consistent right now, though. And he is a production machine. Like he's got production. I mean, the tackles, I think he had the most tackles on any Power 5 defender. And he's solid in covers, got his hands on the ball, he gets after the quarterback as well. So across the board, very productive. Where he stands out the most to me is in coverage. He's very instinctive. I see him play well in man and in zone. Just the way he reads the quarterback, the way he recovers if a receiver gets behind him or if he's in zone and there's no one to guard, he kind of looks for somebody to go help out on. So those are things that you don't really see from college linebackers in coverage right now. So, and that's big. Like some of the today, like 10 years ago, like linebackers that are so good against the run and they are sure tacklers. As long as they had that, they kind of get away with having mediocre coverage skills. Today's NFL, you got to be able to cover. And Cedric Gray is really good in coverage, really instinctive, like really smart. So I like that. Pretty solid range, solid athlete, solid length, uses that well. I think he sheds blocks well at times using his length. I think if, North Carolina had two linebackers sitting back there for the most part. That's kind of where college is heading or has been heading. But I think if he just goes to typical 4-3 team and he plays outside linebacker, you can use him in coverage more and he can go after the quarterback at times. I think he'll thrive and he actually could be better in that. So I like Cedric Gray a lot. I think it's a pretty safe pick. And he's an impressive dude. Could play, play strength could be a little better, could be a little stronger. I'm not really too worried about it, especially what today's linebackers are like. And He's missed a few tackles. If you look at the missed tackles column, he's going to be higher up there, but he also has way, way, way more tackles and tackle attempts than everyone else. So the more attempts you have, I guess you could say the more tackles you miss. But so I don't know if it's that much of a negative. I think he's a really safe pick. Really fun to watch. Not going to be for everybody, I guess, but one of my favorite defenders in the class because I think people are sleeping on him. Number 3, I'm going to go Junior Coulson from Michigan. A lot of people's linebacker 1, and it's tough because I do think he's a safe pick as well because it's, he seems like a pretty smart linebacker. He fills lanes. He sees where the ball's being carried through, and he'll go fill the lane. He's a reliable tackler. He's not really going to miss too many tackles. He's physical. He's tough. He's played through injuries. He's pretty smart. Again, we see smart against the run. He shed block. So all the linebackers in the class, I think he's probably the most consistent with tackling versus the run. He's probably the most consistent with his reads, like filling the correct gap or lane. He's probably the most physical. He's probably the toughest. So he's number 1 in those categories, but kind of looking what today's linebackers are doing and where other guys are better, that is my reason for him being number 3. Probably sheds blocks the best out of any linebacker as well. So that's why people have him number 1 linebacker. It's just, I think it's easily number 1 linebacker if it's like 5-10 years ago. He's a little old school, but he does have a lot of upside. Only 21, again, was kind of playing with an injury, so he's pretty explosive too. So a guy you want to work with, a guy that, some teams don't want to, you don't want to have to coach like tackling and just being sound against the run. It's pretty safe pick because of that. But isn't super flashy like today's NFL linebackers. People trying to find the next Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, what Nick Bolton's doing with Kansas City. I mean, there's more than that, but they make these like wow plays where they're rangy sideline to sideline, or they're getting their hands on the ball, taking it back, or getting this big tackle for loss or sack, strip sack, whatever it is. Or some of them are crazy on the blitz. Like, he doesn't really have any of that. Like any of that I just listed. He's number 1 in a lot of like important categories, but doesn't have any of that flashiness, that you look for, I suppose. And he can be flashy going forward. I mainly could be better in coverage, but mainly I wish there was more backfield production. Like, there's very limited. It's kind of just like read where the ball's going. Let's go make the tackle. He does a really good job at that, but usually past the line of scrimmage. So I just wish there was a little bit more for me to put him at number 1. Edan Cooper's more the boomer bust. He's either going to be really good or he's going to be a bust. Like, Colson's going to be pretty good, but he doesn't have the upside of a guy like Edan Cooper. And I think Gray's equally as safe as a pick. I just think there's more to his game. I watch them and I think it's pretty clear. So, but a lot of people do have Coulson number 1. I hear most teams have him 1, and it's understandable. He does things, again, that you don't want to have to coach. That you really can't coach at this stage. You either have it or you don't. For Trevon Wells, another one of those guys I'm really high on. I really like Trevon Wells from Kentucky. It's a guy you want to work with. I wouldn't expect him to be like a full-time player right away, like full snaps. It depends on where he goes. He could start, but I don't know if I'm really expecting it, and that's kind of him being right on schedule. I think he's an upside guy, a guy you want to work with. Just an incredible athlete. He showed it at the combine. He shows it on tape at times as well. Want him to use those traits a little bit more. But super explosive, getting downhill, very good range. I think he's underrated in coverage. I mean, if you look at like the analytics or like those advanced stats, I should say, I guess PFF and some other places have them. His numbers in coverage look very poor, very poor. But if you watch, I'm not sure where they're getting those numbers from, because I think there's things to work on. Again, he's got to fully put it together. He has the traits to be good there, but man, when he reads it, he jumps routes, and he's got some good hands as well, and just explosive, attacking the ball or attacking just whether it's caught or if it's in the air. So I think he's got a lot of upside in coverage, just a lot of upside. And he's a big upside linebacker in this class because the freak athleticism and there's good play there. So there isn't the best linebacker classes these days. So I'm going to go like when there's not a long list of sure thing linebackers, not a long list of sure thing guys at all. I'm going to take one of these guys, that I want to coach up and work with. He has all these freaky traits that really make an elite NFL linebacker, really. But he has to fully use those things, like use those to his advantage. I don't know if you fully see a little bit. I mean, you see him fly downhill, or down across field. I mean, it shows in that category, but fully put it together. Doesn't really play with his instincts. It's kind of just like go at the ball. Let's not read things. So he definitely needs to work on that a little bit. But it's one of those guys that I take a flyer on for sure because he's already pretty good and he has incredible upside, incredible traits that you look for. Number 5 is Peyton Wilson, who is a very talented linebacker, but you kind of got to bump him down a little bit because there are some worries here. But elite athlete. See it on the field, not just at the combine, but on the field. Chase guys down, sideline to sideline. How rangy he is. It just he's an athlete. He's very much an athlete. See the range. Very productive. One of the better college football defenders this season because the production, what he put up on the board and how he impacts the game. I think he's good against the pass and he's good against the run. So there's pretty good balance there. Could rush the passer, pretty athletic, getting after the quarterback and getting him down. I think he really fits great as a 4-3 outside linebacker, being able to use your athleticism out there, cover, and then rush the passer. When you can. So I think you get the most out of him there. So he really fits well in that type of scheme, in that position. Like I said, some negatives, multiple past injuries, some key ones even going back to high school. So that's pretty tough. Like usually history shows those guys, like it's hard for them to fully avoid the injuries throughout their career. So that's tough. Availability, is huge, obviously. Worry about his play strength. Sometimes with blocks, they'll drive him, they'll put him on his ass. It'll be tough for him to shed blocks, and that there's a major difference from college football to the NFL in that category. So I do worry about his play strength to the NFL, but compared to the other linebackers, there's a significant difference, I think. The other guys are pretty physical for the most part. Not super lengthy. I mean, not very underwhelming in that category, but 30-inch arms or so. An older prospect, you see how some of the other guys were like, wow guys, we're talking about they're 21, and he's 24 years old with those injuries, lacking the play strength where you get more strength as you get older, so you wish you had a little bit more play strength. So I almost didn't put him in the top 5, but he's so talented, though, and he's a freaky dude, and he does everything pretty well. So he does make the top 5 list. It's just a really risky pick. And then 6 through 10, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. from Clemson, I like. He's a little undersized. He looks bigger when you're watching him. I think his shoulder pads are huge, but that could be it. But two things I really like with him. I love him in coverage. Love him in coverage. Really good reading the quarterback, jumping routes, big plays in coverage all over the place. Notre Dame was a big one. And I like him as a blitzer as well. He is sneaky as a blitzer, so he's a guy that you use on passing downs. And he's going to be a factor. You're not going to see him play a ton of snaps. You're not going to see him start, but he's going to play on passing downs as a rotational linebacker, and he's going to be sound in coverage, and he can blitz, so it's a little bit of a wild card there. So I do like him. It's just not as consistent every down and as the other guys, but I was close to putting him at 5 and Wilson at 6, but Wilson is the overall better ball player. But with his injury concern, and Trotter is very valuable, will be very valuable on passing. But so will Wilson. So it makes it close. Curtis Jacobs is a tough evaluation, but I like him from Penn State. He's tough because Penn State put him like they lined him up so wide. Like he's so wide as a linebacker and even off the edge at times, which I actually thought he looked pretty good when rushing off the edge. Like he had a good little dip, bend move there. Like he kind of looked like a natural, but he's not really going to play there because he doesn't have crazy length and crazy strength, I suppose. So, but I mean, you could line him up there. He actually looked pretty decent, but he plays so far outside, but he's pretty flashy. He'll fly in the backfield. He'll wrap you up. He'll bring you down. He'll make tackles. He missed some tackles, but he'll kind of make tackles in some awkward, diving situation, like off balance situations. So he's pretty flashy. Kind of fits. Pretty damn athletic, explosive. Kind of fits today's mold, today's style, what you're looking for. Jordan McGee from Temple. A lot of people like him a lot. Other people might be a little higher on him than I am. Did play weaker competition. Wish there was a little more consistency, shedding blocks against that competition. Maybe a little better with the reads, but really impressive, like flashy player, pretty damn explosive, getting downhill. But yeah, I see why people kind of get excited. So a good size to him as well. Yulo Fushio from Washington, getting some buzz as well because how explosive he is. He's kind of hot or cold. Like he has a really good moment on tape, or he has a pretty bad one, like really bad read. Like the way you swear he read it right and then was so sure it was going to be somewhere, and then the ball carrier's going by him. So that popped up a little bit for me. Super explosive, a guy you probably want to work with, though. He had some flashy plays. Again, it's like hot or cold, like high highs, low lows for him. And then it's kind of up in the air for the next man up. I went with J.D. Bertrand from Notre Dame. And Leofau is another Notre Dame linebacker that you could argue maybe a little more. Well, I'd say it's not an argument. He probably has higher upside than Bertrand, I'd say. Like freaky length, pretty rangy, athletic. I was surprised at his testing numbers, Leofau, that is. I thought he'd test a little bit better, but he plays faster on the field. So you could definitely say he has more upside. I like Bertrand, though. Like, he was a legit recruit, like Georgia. I think Dan Lanning was at Georgia, who's with Oregon now, like highly recruited him, and he just really wanted to play for Notre Dame. So and that's Georgia we're talking about. And he played very well for quite a few years for Notre Dame, whether it's in coverage or, stopping the run, getting out in the backfield, getting after the quarterback too. I mean, they actually rushed him a bit, and he was pretty good at it, maybe too much. Let him just play off ball linebacker at times. That. So I still think he has some upside to him as well, some good experience. Sleeper Steel Chambers. People talk about Eichenberg more. I like Chambers. Like, he was a little underwhelming with the testing numbers. I think he plays a little faster, but sometimes it shows up. Like, not super rangy, like trying to chase a guy, but I think he's pretty instinctive in coverage. Like, he'll get in the backfield. I thought he played all right against Georgia 2 years ago in that game. I went back and watched that one. So you don't hear about Chambers much from Ohio State. An interesting one. Do you rank James Williams from Miami with the safeties or the linebackers? He has linebacker size in play style in the box, kind of like a thumper in the box. So a linebacker that can cover tight ends, But listed as safety, played a lot safety, actually played free safety at times and actually had decent reps there. Just doesn't have the speed to play there. So I see a lot of people ranking him at linebacker, and he could end up, it's just going to depend on scheme, but I think it could be like a Jaron Curse-like player with the Cowboys where he's a safety, looks like a linebacker at times. Same thing when he was with Minnesota. So could be like that type of player, but I do see most people ranking him at linebacker, so I did want to talk about him a little bit, but I think he's decent in coverage. I almost want to rank him with the safeties, but still getting together my full rankings together here. So there's the linebackers. There's some sneaky guys in this class, explosive guys that I like. Cedric Gray, Trevon Wallace, Curtis Jacobs, probably my favorite guys of the class that I'm a little higher on than everyone else, but some risky picks in here as well, some safe picks, a little bit of everything. So I think someone's going to steal Chambers. Steal Chambers late. Something about him. I like him. So we'll see. But putting together the final touches on my draft content, all my rankings. We'll have you guys updated with everything you need on our Twitter and here on YouTube. We'll be live during day one. We'll have a bunch of content throughout the draft, after the draft as well. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye.